and Senior Lecturer at Rifa International University. So I will be hosting this event today, and we are waiting for some other people to join. And we will wait for around 4 to 5 minutes. Thank you. As I provided the brief introduction a few moments ago, we were waiting for the few people to join, and now we will start this program formally. So I'm a member of Coordination Committee at Center for Peace and Global Studies and a senior lecturer at Rifa International University. And I will be hosting you people today. And for staying away from any administrative issues, I would request all participants to put their mics on mute. And in case you need to ask any questions during the lecture, please leave your questions in the chat box. Sorry, please keep me unmuted. So I would request all participants to put their mics on mute. In case you need to ask any questions during the lecture, please leave your questions in the chat box. So today we have 3 worthy speakers who will provide a talk on Islam in Russia, and then we will move forward towards the closing remarks by Dr. Atiq Zafar at the end. You will be given an opportunity to ask questions by unmuting yourself at the end of each talk for 5 minutes. And we will begin this session by Tilawat al-Quran Pak. So I will do that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. So before moving on to the talks of our guest speakers, I will present a brief introduction of Center for Peace and Global Studies. So basically, Center for Peace and Global Studies is a non-political, non-profitable academic institution which aims to support academic activities in universities all over the Pakistan and in some other South Asian countries and region as well. And it specially emphasizes in the field of social sciences, and its primary purpose is to build realization, appreciation, and capacity in Muslim social scientists to identify and search for potential solutions currently faced by Muslim world in the light of Islamic values, knowledge, thought, and ethics. In this context, this center provides support to academicians through conducting seminars, international conferences, textbook writing, and other academic activities. We have conducted a few international conferences over the past few years in Maldives and Malaysia, focusing on the integration of knowledge as well. And now we have planned and implementing the conducting of online webinars and courses. And we are also looking forward to find ways to fund for textbook writing and research in upcoming days with focusing on Islamic integration of knowledge. So after that introduction, I would like our guest speaker, Dr. Muhammad Ali Dina Khail, to please unmute yourself and give us your talk on this occasion.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
First of all, I am grateful to the organizer of this wonderful webinar, a very important and like academic theme Uh, so today I will highlight the development of Islamic art and Russia. Uh, First of all, I know that our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Mira, like she will discuss the history and background of Islam and Russia. But I think it is important that the first source from which we know about the Islam and Islamic development in Russia, that is the uh, Risala of Ibn Fazlan. Risala Ibn Fazlan, this Risala, this book about his travel to Russia and other of the Tataristan, he wrote in 921. Uh, the Risala published in Arabic language, it bears the date of 921, and like the 1100th anniversary of Islam in Russia, so which actually starts from 922. And I hope that this point will also be clear by the keynote speaker that the actual date on the original manuscript on that very Risala is 921. And like the 1100th anniversary, it starts from the 922. About the this is one point, and I hope that it will be clear about the population of Muslims in Russia. Various sources they have quoted different numbers of the Muslim population in Russia. The latest source uh, they have mentioned that there are 30 million Muslims in Russia, and I hope that one of our worthy speaker, Professor Ejaz Shafi Gilani, I think this is his topic, and will be discussed. Now, the Islamic development of Islam and the history, it is divided into 4 periods. Sorry, it is divided into 5 periods. So, like as we discussed, that it starts from 921-22. So the first period is from 921-22 to 1240. The second period is from 1240 to 1550. And similarly, the third period is from 1550 to 1917, which is called the Tsarist Russian period. And it is followed by the Soviet period, which is from 1917 to 1991. And that is followed by the last and the fifth period, the post-Soviet period from 1991 to that. I will be focusing on the third period, that is the Tsarist Russia period from 1550 to 1917. And as I already mentioned that I will be talking on the development of Islamic art in Russia. So my focus will be in the development of Islamic art in this particular period. And then like it was very difficult for me to study the development of Islamic art in the whole of the Russia. So I have limited my study only to the one city of the Russia, that is St. Petersburg. Actually, I have twice visited the city of St. Petersburg, and like there I observed and I found a lot of records of the Islamic art. So that is why today I will be focusing on the development of Islamic art and the city of the St. Petersburg. But first of all, I'm trying if I could share the screen so that you may see some uh, uh, samples of Islamic art uh, in the famous Duke Palace in the St. Petersburg. So let me try to uh, is it the screen visible to the audience?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. So this is uh, the palace of the Grand Duke Vladimir Alexandrovich, which I personally visited in the on the 27th June 2017. And here, I hope that you all will be like seeing uh, the, the the samples of Islamic art, like here, the first kalma, the La ilaha illallah, it is written on the walls of this historical palace. So, uh, actually, this is uh, one of the last imperial palaces to be built in St. Petersburg. So this palace of Grand Duke Vladimir Alexandrovich, it was built between 1867 to 1872 for the third son.
Sorry, Dr. Muhammad. The screen is shared, but the document is not open. If you
Uh,
can open.
yes, so I don't start shares. Okay, so I will share the document after like my presentation, and then like the organizers, they will share with the audience. And let me first like finish my presentation because already the time is short. So, like the development of Islamic art in Russia, as already I mentioned that there are like five different the development of Islam is divided. The history of the development of Islam is divided into five periods, five eras. So my focus is on the Tsarist Russian era, and then I will be focusing on the development of Islamic art in the Saint Petersburg, in the city of the Saint Petersburg. So, like there, actually, I have focused on the architecture of the mosque. There is a famous mosque in the city of Saint Petersburg. Uh, so, first of all, like the Saint Petersburg have a significant Muslim communities. There is original cathedral mosque. This mosque, it was opened in 1913. And about the architecture of this mosque, The building dazzled with its decorative mosaic of lapis blue tiles. It is like so intricate, and its design that uh, mm, like it was this the mosque. It was completed its architecture in 1920, and there is another important uh, art, Islamic art in this particular city of the Saint Petersburg, and that is the art of Islamic book binding. So the book covers crafted during the Islamic civilization. It they were more than just protectors of the holy scriptures. They were windows to the world of Islamic civilization, which placed a high value on knowledge, art, craftsmanship, and progress. Exhibition offers us a glimpse into the rich heritage of book binding, a crop cultivated across the different dynasties. The production of illustrated books, it was concentrated in royal workshops, and like we can find a lot of manuscripts and samples of book bindings in the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and as well as in the St. Petersburg State University. Uh, Beside this, there is in the St. Petersburg University and in the Institute of the Oriental Studies, there are samples of the Islamic calligraphy. Islamic calligraphy that is found, and like a rare samples of the Islamic calligraphy are found in the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts. So, and there are some exhibition of the Islamic calligraphy in the institute.
I think we have lost Dr. Muhammad due to some connection issues. We will wait for 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then we will proceed to next speaker if we wouldn't be able to catch him back.
I'm sorry, the internet connection disturbed. Uh, so like uh, let me like conclude the discussion that Islamic art, it developed in Russia in different eras of history, but particularly during the Tsarist Russia, Islamic art, it developed particularly and very rapidly. And the areas of Islamic art which developed during this period, they are like divided into four categories. The first is the Islamic architecture, which is like we can see in the architecture, particularly of the mosques. And there is a very famous mosque in the St. Petersburg city, the old cathedral mosque, and similarly another mosque is also located in the Moscow. That is also the oldest mosque in the Russia. Overall, there are almost like the recent statistics and data shows that there are almost 8,000 mosques in the Russian Federation. But these two mosques, the mosque of the city of the St. Petersburg and the Moscow, they are very popular for their architecture and different designs of arts in these mosques. Uh, the second important uh, uh, art which is found in this city, that is about the calligraphy, the Islamic calligraphy, the particularly the Arabic calligraphy. And I tried, but I couldn't manage to share my screen with you. And there is like the famous phallus of the Duke Vladimir Alexandrovich, that famous palace that is situated in the city of Saint Petersburg, and like in there are in the inside rooms, particularly like the reading room of the Duke. There is on the walls we can see the Islamic art, and particularly the La ilaha illallah. It is written on the wall. So at that, like we can see different four styles of different arts, but the visible one, the art which is like the visible and the prominent, that is the Islamic art and the samples. So, and later on, I will try to share with the moderator. Uh, Next one is like the painting. So there are some famous and important paintings, which is also in the different Islamic books, and they are also found in the Institute of the Oriental Studies of the St. Petersburg in the St. Petersburg State University. These paintings, like the first one, uh, paintings and different manuscripts, we can see that, and we can trace back to the 11th century. There is another important art, and that is the art of the book binding. The art of the book binding, it is also like the Islamic art of the book binding. We can see there in the manuscript section of the Oriental section, like different Islamic books which they have preserved. So on the titles, on the covers, different Islamic samples of Islamic art we can see there. So, like to conclude the discussion, Islam reached to Russia in 921 AD, and the first book about the uh, development of Islam in Russia. It is written by Ibn Fazlan, and the name of the book is uh, Risala Ibn Fazlan, and he wrote this Risala in 921. It was later on discovered in 1923 in the Mashhad city of Iran. And this Risala is translated into different languages like the German, Russian, and French. And the latest translation is in English language, that was translated in 2005. So this is the earliest work, Arabic source, which describes the history of Islam in Russia. And later on, from 900 21-22 till this time, Islamic development of Islamic art, it is divided into 5 periods, and mostly, like we can see that the Islamic art that developed in the Tsarist period, and in the particularly in the two cities, the Moscow and the Saint Petersburg cities, we can find a lot of like paintings, calligraphy, architecture, book bindings, and all these samples in these two cities, in particularly in the city of Saint Petersburg, and the internal decoration and the art which we can see on the Duke Palace, like on the walls of the famous Duke Palace, written before, like the La ilaha illallah. So there are uh, mm, uh, a lot of developments in Islamic art in Russia. Now, like when I was studying development of Islamic art in Russia, so I found that this particular area, it is
Unfortunately, we have lost the connection again. So now I would like, can I ask Professor Dr. Elmira Akhmetova to unmute herself and start the session? Thank you. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Is here properly? Can you hear properly me?
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I am going to, should I share myself screen? Because I can do it.
Yeah, I can share if you want. Okay, thank you. It's visible now.
Yeah, it's visible. So assalamu alaikum everyone. And from very beginning, I just wanted to thank you for inviting to this talk, because this topic I consider is very important, especially today when we are talking about Russia a lot, and we want to know more about Russia, about minorities in Russia, and also the prospects of these minority groups in Russia, because the Muslims are considered as minorities in Russia. And from very beginning, I just wanted to mention to you that when we are talking about Muslims in Russia, we have to remember that these Muslims are divided into more than 80 different ethnicities who are practicing Islam today in Russia. So slowly I will explain everything and it will be more clear for you. Actually, here I am going to give to you a historical survey, because I am historian. And this is the easier for me to give the historical survey than the talking about what will happen in future, because it's very difficult to guess what will happen in future in our days. So from very beginning, in order to make it clear for everyone, I just wanted to show to you the map of Russia, what is called a Russian Federation today. This is the yellow color as a one unit, and it is huge. And in the left side, you can see the Moscow, the capital city, and the doctor was the first speaker was talking about the St. Petersburg. This is very close to Finland and the key, but unfortunately I cannot show it to you. But these all places are called Russia. I mean, and also I wanted to make very clear from very beginning that when we are talking about Russia, it does not include Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and other stans, because we are talking today about the Russian Federation here, and it is a huge country with the population of 140 plus 43 or 44 million population, and from this the 140 to 43 million, at least 14 million are Muslims. This is the officially established number. Smallest number is 14 million. But according to the Grand Mufti of Russia, Rabil Ghainetdinov, the one time he mentioned it's about 20 million Muslims are living in Russia, and it will be around 14% of the total population. But now, because of the lot of the changes are happening and many the migrants were coming also from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan to Russia, it is believed there might be at around maximum 30 million Muslims, but it does not mean that these are all identifying themselves as Muslims. We are just calculating them based on the ethnicity, but it might be they may also convert into Christianity or might be the atheists. So this is only about numbers and it's not easy to establish. So let us start to see how did it start. Is this the history of Islam in this territory? But here from very beginning, I wanted to make another point, coming back to the map. This place in yellow, which called to the Russia, it is the outcome of the imperial and colonial policies of the Russian Empire starting from the 16th century. Because when Islam came to this place, it was not named by Russia because Russia was a very small one, several principalities living around the cities of the, it was not called the Russia even, around the Nizhny Novgorod, Kiev, and these were all the places where the Rus principalities were living. And later they established the Moscow, city of Moscow, and Moscow became the barrier between the Islamic places and the Russian principalities who accepted Orthodox Christianity later, after again in the 10th century, close to the end of the 10th century, when the people, the Turkic-speaking people in the Bulgar kingdom were accepting Islam. In 922, like the first speaker already mentioned. But before that one, we have to, so this is the history, how it was happening. And we can speak here, when we are talking about history of Islam in this territory, we have to speak about Bulgar kingdom, who are, they didn't have any relation to the with the Russians, but these are Turkic speaking people called the Bulgars and who are called the Tatars today, because the Bulgar kingdom was destroyed by the Golden Horde, later I will mention to you, and by the Mongols. When the Mongol was destroyed by the Mongols and they established Golden Horde, but immediately within the several decades, this Golden Horde also became the Islamic State. And later in the 15th century, Islamic Khanates appeared from the Golden Horde Empire. So, and the history of Russia as a Russian people starts only from 16th century, like empires and Soviet Union and to the Russian Federation. So historically, these places, what we are talking today, were important centers of Islamic education and culture, with advanced learning centers and renowned scholars for centuries, because many people were coming to get education from Central Asia, from the Far East, even the Caucasus region, and also it has a comprehensive and long-lasting legacy of Islamic educational structure there. So the first date when Islam entered into the territory, which we know today by Russia, is the year of 652. And when the Muslim army, this was starting from the Khulafa Rashidun time, and it will happen also during the time of the Umayyads time. Muslim army first took the city of the Dermant in the Caucasus, where the Dagestani people are living today, different ethnicities in Caucasus, in Dagestan, not the Chechens and English, but Dagestani people like the Avars and the Laz and the others. So Muslim army entered into the city of Derman, and it became called the Babul Jihad, or the door to the jihad, or the spreading Islam to this huge region. And also during this time, there will be some relations with the Khazar kingdom, and many the later travelers were visiting it, like Ibn Battuta and others, and were writing about it. And the Garnati was also in these places, not only in the Hazar Kingdom. So in these places, always there was Islam was already very much present in the region before 922, because these places are all the region in Caucasus, closer to the Caucasus region. Islam spread, and also it spread to the Bulgar kingdom, but Islam was not accepted in these places as an official religion. Then in the Bulgar kingdom, in the upper Volga region, in the Bulgar kingdom, Turkic-speaking kingdom, the leader Almash ruler decided that there is supposed to be one unified religion for his people, and he decided most of the people are already practicing Islam in my region. Why I am not writing to the Abbasid Caliph Muqtadir Billah? It was the time of the Muqtadir Billah, to write to him, and he wrote a letter. This is Ibn Fadlan is mentioning about it in his Risala. He mentioned that we have the many people here, but unfortunately we want to know about Islam more, but we don't have access and we don't have any educational centers. Can you send some scholars to teach to us more about Islam, and also some engineers to build the mosques in our region? So Ibn Fadlan was one of the fuqaha who was sent as a delegation coming from the Abbasid Caliph to this region in the upper Volga region. This is around the city of Kazan in Tatarstan today. The republic called the Tatarstan, still Tatar people are living there, the native people. So they came, and the Almash ruler, Bulgar ruler, declared Islam as an official religion of this region. Of the Bulgar kingdom only, and it became significant Islamic educational hub with dozens of madrasas and famous scholars, and the extensive scholarly and economic ties to the rest of the Muslim world. And many Muslim travelers were also visiting. There were many, not only Muslims, also the Europeans were coming, and they left many traveling the accounts about this region. So what also I wanted to mention here is that in the Volga-Urals region, the Islam spread through the peaceful means, by trade, by Sufi order, education, mostly had developed as an educational hub independently from the Arab places, and where the Abbasids and others were living, because these places were never became the part of the caliphates. They were established as the Islamic states independently. Then in the 13th century, Mongol invasion happened in this place also. So Mongols invaded Bulgar kingdom. Also they destroyed some of the heritage, and they established the one huge empire called the Golden Horde in 1242. But since the Mongols were never stopping in one place, and after the invasion, only the ruling elite from the Mongols remained in this time. And as a result, the local people who were mainly Muslims remained in the place and ruling, and there the Turkic language was used. And Golden Horde also became the very powerful Islamic state during the time of the Uzbek Khan, with the capital city of Sarai, which was the great city of the medieval world with the 600,000 inhabitants. So, for example, Ibn Battuta was in the right hand, the side, you can see one of my citation from Ibn Battuta, who visited the city and said, Sarai is one of the most beautiful cities, full of people, with the beautiful bazaars and wide streets, and having 13 congregational mosques, along with plenty of lesser mosques. So there were many famous scholars were living in this Sarai, poets and scientists like the Saif Sarai, Qutb Mahmud al-Bulghari, Muhammad Hafiz al-Din Muhammad Shihab al-Din al-Yusuf, Ibn Arab Shah, Yusuf Jamal al-Din Hassan bin Mahmud, Isam, ad-Din bin Abdul Mulk al-Marghinani, and many more. So this was the, and I just also wanted to show to you the map, how it looked. If you look at the upper, your left side, you can see Russian principalities around the city of Moscow. So this is happening in the 13th century already. So the Russians are living, Russian small the kingdoms are living, starting from the Baltic Sea and covering the city of these the places, and until Nizhny Novgorod. City of Nizhny Novgorod was always the part in one of the ancient cities of the Russians. But from there, other places are this huge territory was the Islamic state of or empire of the Golden Horde, with the Islam was the official religion here, and the main language was Turkic, because Russians are speaking in Slavic, and there were the Turkic people were living, and in some places also Ugro-Finnic people were living there. Then in the 15th century, because of the epidemic started, the Black Death. As a result, the empire was huge, and some kind of the contact in the rulership was lost, because even we have Zoom today and it's very easy for us, but in the 15th century, unfortunately, they needed to travel from one place to another in order to have some kind of the kurultay, they call the meetings or the assemblies, but it did not happen for around 10-15 years because the movement was prohibited due to the epidemic. As a result, Golden Horde became disseminated or divided into small khanats, which we call around the city of around the big cities. For example, around the city of Kazan Khanat emerged with their own regional ruler. Then Astrakhan Khanat around the city of Astrakhan, Crimean Khanat in Crimean Peninsula, Siberian Khanat, Qasim Khanat, Nogai Khanat, and many more Khanats. All these were again practicing Islam as their official religion, and giving also they were actually the multi-ethnic and multinational, as many ethnicities were living, and also different followers of the different religions were also living there. And for example, we know from the time of even the Golden Horde that Alexander Nevsky was building the church in the city of the Sarai. So there are many historical recordings how there were relations and religions. They had the religious freedom in the different type of the Islamic cities and Islamic states. So these are the different I was showing to you around the city of Kazan. On your right side is the Kazan Khanat, Nogai Khanat down, Astrakhan Khanat next to the Caspian Sea. Crimean Khanat is not only covering Crimean Peninsula, also the covering huge place, and later is going to have the relations with the Ottoman Empire, and they are going to have the very strong relations, and also the exchange of the cultural, religious exchange. And the Moscow Principality was on the up on your left side. And this Moscow Principality, which is the atom of the Russian Empire, it became this is the young state was in the 15th century, 16th century, and it became very energetic, and the small kingdoms, the Muslim kingdoms already started fighting against each other. So the same thing, what was happening in Muslim Andalusia happened also here. They started having conflict among each other, Muslim states, and the Russian, this is the Muscovite Principality. It's called the Muscovite Principality because the center was around the Moscow. They started invading these places, which are, the Muslim majority places, one after another. So 1552, Kazan Khanat with the city of Kazan was invaded. And later in 1556, Astrakhan Khanat is going to be invaded. Then the Nogais and also the Siberian Khanat, these are on the right side, we cannot see it in the map. Crimean Khanat will happen only during the time of the Catherine II in the 18th century, because always the Ottomans were providing protectorate, providing protectorate to this Crimean Khanate. So now Muslims started living under the Russian Empire starting from the 16th century. And myself, I divide the experience living as minorities under the Russians into four different periods. Number one, starting from the fall of the city of Kazan until 1762. This is the 1762 is the time starting of the period, the rulership of Catherine II. So during this time, for 200 years, immediately after the invasion of these places, massive closure of the mosque happened, demolishing Islamic heritage. All the books were burned, all the what was related to Islamic heritage, books, the mosques, madrasas were closed. Not only that one, even the elites, the Muslim elites who were rulers in this is the Khanates and also the nobility, all of them, for example, after the invasion of the city of Kazan, it was a huge city. 100,000 male population were killed and their wives were, and the women were distributed to the Russian soldiers. So there was ethnic cleansing, and also Muslims were not given permission to live in the cities because there was a fear that these are going to have civilization, because cities are very important to have their own civilization or progress or education. So they were kept in the far from the cities. You know, even when we travel in the city of Kazan, this is my city, and around 80 kilometers, not 80, around 40 kilometers around the city of Kazan until today, there are no Tatar city villages. These are all populated by Russians, because Russian Empire was by force bringing Russians and allocating in these places where Muslims were living earlier. And forceful Christianization and Russification policy is very, very strong because of the policy of the empire at that time. This is we have to remember, this is the 16th, 17th, and 18th century. And during this time, Russian Empire believed that all the people of Russia, population of Russia, supposed to be unified by religion and language. It's why Muslims who were not speaking Russian, because they were not speaking Russian at all, they were mainly Turkic, or later when the Caucasus will be invaded, they will speak in their own native languages, like some Iranian, some Turkic, and other languages. So they tried to make the population speaking in Russian, and also to become Orthodox Christian, not only Christian, Orthodox Christian by their religion, because this was the belief at that time and the policy of the empire at that time. So then the Catherine, or Yekaterina II, we call him the Catherine II, or Catherine the Great. She was the German lady, and she got married to one of the Tsar of the Russian Tsar, or the king. After that, her husband died at the very young age, and she started ruling. And during her time, she did the huge move in the Russian Empire's policies towards the population, Muslim population. They called the Muslim subjects. They were not considered as citizens, but they were the subjects. Number one, from her time, starting from 1764, 65, she will issue a rule or the law that the Muslims were given permission to practice their religion. This was the first time after 200 years, Muslims were free to practice their religion at their homes. And also, she decided to start a new policy of cooperating with Muslim clergy in some of the empire's policies, and this policy continues until today. For that reason, muftiats were established in 1789, first in the city of Orenburg, then it will move to the city of Ufa in the Urals region. So these muftiats were expected, like the religious ministers at that time, who are responsible for all actions of the Muslims, who will control the Muslims, who will take care of the not only welfare and also the way of thinking and also education. So now the Muslims' entire life became the controlled, or not only controlled, guided by these institutions of the Muftiyat. And today we have more than 80 Muftiyats in Russia, regional, small ones, city Muftiyats, but the main ones are established, and we have the one in Ufa. This is still in Ufa, city of the Ufa, which is the continuation of the Muftiyat established during this time, Russian Empire time. And also another one, the most powerful one, is led by the Ravil Gainetin in Moscow, in the city of Moscow. There is another in city of Moscow, and also in the Caucasus region, also another one. And also she provided favorable conditions for economic and cultural development for Muslims, because Muslims were not given permission to move from one place to another, or have a business, have a property, or to travel for trade. Now nobility, only nobility were given permission. They were given permission to travel, to have some property, and also to have some business. Later, unfortunately, starting from 1850s, assimilation policies again returned back. Now the Russian Empire started opening the missionary schools in the places like the big cities, like in Kazan, in other places, because they decided to russify Muslim subjects by education, and religious persecutions also happened until 1905. In 1905, at the beginning of the last century, there was a Russian, the first time the Russian people were given equality, political equality, economic equality, and freedom, because in 1905, Russian Revolution, Fourth Revolution happened. This is not October yet, and this continued until 1917. Muslims during this time, they were having the movement called the Jadidism. Maybe there will be time I will mention about it. Movement for educational, social, and political, the revival of Islam and Muslims in the empire, in the entire Russian Empire. And they started having the members in the Russian parliament, which is called the Duma, and also all Russian Muslim conferences were called, and also press started. During this time, only during this time, at least 50, this around 100, more than 100 years ago, there were around minimum 50 different Russian publications, Muslim publications were happening, not in Russian, in the Turkic, in Arabic, like the newspapers, and also the journals were, and also the schools were open. A lot of the madrasas and also schools, Islamic schools were open during this time. So during this time, actually, this was the empire, and all this Central Asia was also there. Already 11% of the Russian Empire were Muslims, but still it was purely Great Russian. I am moving to the another, because this one I already mentioned to you. So here, not only the Muslim congresses were happening, what I mentioned, all the Muslims, Azeris, Tatars, Chechens, Ingush, and from Dagestan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and many other ethnicities, because it was the empire time at that time, all started being united under the umbrella, which was called All Russian Muslim Congress. They were called for several times, and they formulated their own party, Ittifaq al-Muslimin party, and also participated in the, as I mentioned to you, in the decision-making process of the empire. And educational reforms and printing press, journals, newspaper happen, and this is called differently. Some people call it Ittifaq movement, or Islahan Tajid, or Jadidism. So these are some scholars I just wanted to mention to you from Russia, like Abdurrashid Ibrahimov, Ahmed Aghaoğlu. Abdurrashid Ibrahimov is a Siberian Tatar. Ahmed Aghaoğlu is an Azeri. Ismail Gaspral, a Crimean Tatar. Musa Jarullah, a Tatar he was born in the city of the Rostov-on-Don. Sadri Mahsudi, also he is a Tatar, Yusuf Akçura, also the Kazan Tatar. Actually, Yusuf Akçura, Sadri Maksudi became very popular in Turkey, and they were especially in the Turkish Republican era time. And I mean, these are the scholars, Russian scholars. They not only were popular within this context of the Russian Empire, but they were worldwide known. Like Abdurrashid Ibrahimov, he was one of the agents of the agent is not, I am telling here in a negative way. I am telling, I don't know what the word to find. Some kind of the missionary is also not suitable for the Muslims. Dari, we can call it Dari. One of the person, the Sultan Abdul Hamid II sent him to Japan, and he started spreading Islam in Japan, and they built the mosque also there with others, and he died in 1949 in Japan. Also took many Japanese to Hajj in the, for if I'm not mistaken, in the late 30s. So these people were very popular even beyond the Russian Empire. So then October Revolution happened in 1917. So actually the history of Muslims under Soviet Union is a very difficult to explain, because there will be some kind of the repressions will happen. Muslims are going to be killed, because actually Muslims were not intentionally chosen here, but the Soviet Union was against all religions, because Soviet Union's main policy was based on atheism. So believing in non-existence of God, all the education was based on that one. Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, all of them were banned. So here I'm just mentioning some of the data related to the Muslims only, but if I am talking Muslims, it does not mean that the Christians were suffering less than Muslims during the time of the Soviet Union. So again, we can divide this one into 4. For example, during the Civil War time, immediately after October Revolution, they collaborated with Muslims, even the many actually, like the Maulana Barakatullah and many, I forgot the name, a lot of the Maulanas from the pan-Islamists from Indian subcontinent, because the British was having some repressions against them in the 1920s, and they came to Russia to live there in Russia, and they provided all support, because Lenin was talking about Muslim comrades and the brothers, because there was a need support from the 11% of the population. But when Soviet Union was established, Stalin came to the power, and he started assault on Islam and Muslims until the entire, even almost identity of Muslims is going to be destroyed. Second World War time, again, collaboration with Muslims happened, because there was a need for the collaboration from the Muslim population wartime. Then during the Cold War time, collaboration continues. So these are the policies were happening at different times based on the realities and the context, political context and the political games. So here I just wanted to mention to you about what did happen during the Joseph Stalin time. Just I am mentioning here 5 policies. Number 1, massive closure of the mosques and the educational institutions. For example, before October Revolution, there were 14,500 Islamic educational institutions. All were closed. None of the madrasa remained until the time of the Second World War. Only one will be open in Uzbekistan. So from 26,000 mosques, only 1,312 remain functioning, only small ones. Mainly they were closed but not destroyed. Second, liquidating Muslim religious scholars and imams, because all the good educated, active, the activists, Muslim activists and the scholars, even the village imams, all were church later. They were labeled like the anti-Soviet, the activists or the British spy, or some kind of ideological danger is coming from him, because he is the inviting people to believe in God, and they were all collected. Millions of educated Muslims all were collected, or rich people, rich Muslims were collected and sent to Siberia, to Gulag, or some of them left also Russia. If they were able to go, they crossed the border to Afghanistan, for example, to other places, walking for months. So from 45,000 educated Russia's Muslims, only 2,000 survived. 2,000 survived. This is according to some of the archival sources. And also the cutting Soviet Muslims of their religious and cultural heritage, because Islamic literature periodicals were halted, existing literature were banned. Public book burnings happened because Muslims were demanded to burn the older Quran and the Hadith books. What is talking about Islam? Later, when the alphabet is going to be changed in 1928, all writings in Arab script, because the Muslims in Russia were using the Arabic script for the writing in the Turkic. So all of them were they supposed not to keep these books, because even having the one page of Quran or something written in Arabic was enough to be shot on spot for Muslims, because there was no rule at that time. So they were immediately called, these are the anti-Soviet government or enemies of the Soviet enemies. So they were killed. Then elimination of Muslim intellectuals and political elite also happened, like even the pro-Soviet, the socialist thinkers like Sultan Mirza, Sultan Ghaliev, Wali Ibrahimov, Umar Ibrahimov, and many were having they went under repression, killed, because they were considered that there is ideological danger coming from them. And before October Revolution, 1917, Muslims, I mention about it intentionally, that they were all having they were able to understand each other, because they were having the united Turkic official or formal Turkish. It was very close to the Ottoman Turkish. Every educated Muslim in Russia was able to read it and to understand it. But so they were like one united Muslim Ummah. But later, since they became divided into small nationalities, and by 1959 census, already there were 38 different nations and sub-nationalities who were in the Muslim majority regions. But today, as I mentioned to you, we have more than 80 Muslim ethnicities living in Russia, and the literary language became also very much differ from each other. And most of these people are communicating today in Russian. Russian is considered as an official language. The minority languages are not much used. And the young people also, they don't want to study these languages. So educational system was also compulsory here, because I want to keep some time to speak about what happens today. So actually, the only one point I wanted to mention here, all the time mindset of youth are always formulated by educational system. So by generations, new generation already started by believing that in communism, also not believing it got because of the unified Soviet educational system. I remember during my time, because I finished my school during the time of the late Soviet Union time. I remember at school, in order to get A or the highest grade, always we were supposed to finish all the essays declaring that there is no God and only our country is the best country to live, and we are going to have the communism in order to make everyone happy. So this was the mindset of the young people who were Muslims. I am also Tatar. And if you can see from my family name, Ahmedova is the Binte Ahmed, is the family name from Ahmed Dara. So I am from the Ziz Bulgar kingdom, the people about whom I was mentioning, but still we didn't know anything about Islam when the Soviet Union collapsed. So these are here I just wanted to mention that the Muslims during the time of the Second World War time, they were fighting and together with everyone like the Soviet people, and they were performing the heroic acts, also like the Chechens in the Brest Fortress, protection of the Brest Fortress. At the time, the beginning of the war, there were the armies coming from Chechnya, and they were fighting and become all the heroes. But unfortunately, in 1944, Soviet Union decided to deport entire nations like the Chechens, Ingush, Crimean Tatars, and also some Nuvais and others. These are I mentioned only a few of them, and also Germans, not only Muslims, to Central Asian places. So during the wartime, when the Soviet Union was already victorious at that time, when the men were fighting in the Soviet army, their mother, father, kids, everyone, 100% of population in there, the native lands were collected. They were given only 15 minutes to collect what they can collect. During the winter time, they were all put to the trains, which were used to transfer the animals, and they were in the thousands, and they were sent to the places to the Central Asia without any infrastructure in the middle of the winter. So as a result, the half of the Crimean Tatars died because of the hygienic problems during this time, because of the sickness, because of the mainly hunger, Ingushes, Chechens. So this that happened also during the time of the Soviet Union to the people there. So then after the Second World War, there will be the easier time for Muslims. And then still in the Soviet Union, in USSR, I am reading, this is the citation, Islam was seen, in encyclopedia, this is the mention. Islam is a vestige of the society of exploiters and abroad. It is a weapon in the hands of the local reactionaries and of foreign imperialism. So this is how Islam was seen during the time of the Soviet Union, and it continued until the collapse of the Soviet Union in formally 1991. So what is the status of Muslims today in Russia? So immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union, resulted emergence of many the new independent countries like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan. These are all did I forget all of I think I mentioned all of them. These are the Tajikistan also. These are all Muslim majority places, they became independent. But the other places like Volga-Urals region, where are the Tatar or the Kazan Tatar Muslims and the Bashkirts are living, Volga-Urals region. Ural is the mountain there in the middle of the Russian Empire today, dividing Russia into Europe and Asia. So Russia is the European and Asian continent. Ural mountains are dividing it into two the continents. So Western Siberia, Siberian Tatars, or the Turkic-speaking people, and Northern Caucasus, Chechens, Dagestans, and also the Ingush and many other ethnicities there. So these are all the part of the Russian Federation today because they were not able to get independence, because there were also the wars in the Chechnya in order to get independence, but it did not happen. Actually, there are a population, are the majority, Muslim majority in these places. But we have to mention that all Russian cities are having Muslim population. Even in Moscow, there are millions of Muslims are living in the city of Moscow. And if you are just Googling it, for example, the Moscow Cathedral Mosque during Eid time or the Bayram time, then immediately you will see how the 200,000 of Muslims are coming to one place, to the mosque, around the place of the mosque, and praying together. This is the Eid prayer on the streets, on the roof of the houses. So all the these are the even smaller cities, all are having the Muslim population today. And regarding the halal food or the scarf, there are not much discriminations are happening. They have access to halal food. And also they have a lot of the new mosques. Actually, around 3-4 years ago, officially there were 8,000 mosques, and even today is more than 10,000 mosques. These are the big, and there are Islamic universities in many cities, and madrasas are also in order to give the education to Muslim population. So it's why usually we call this time after the collapse of the Soviet Union as a Islamic Renaissance in post-Soviet Russia. So it's happening. And also so if we are speaking here regarding these are the political entities, so Muslims are predominant today in 7 out of the 22 republics of the Russian Federation, which are republics of Bashkortostan and Tatarstan in the Volga-Urals region, and the republics of Chechnya, Ingushetia, Dagestan, Kabardino-Balkaria, and Karachay-Cherkessia in the Northern Caucasus. So this is how they're and also another interesting thing to mention, that is according to the constitution, Russian Empire is a secular country, but it is the supplementary law on freedom of conscience. So here, Russian Orthodox Christianity, Judaism, Islam and Buddhism are considered traditional religions, and they are supposed to be protected by the state. So this is in the official level, but it does not mean that Muslims are not having some problems there, because the return to Islam after the Soviet Union, it was very hectic, and because I remember during this time, the people were hungry to get education about Islam, and the youngsters started going to different places and also getting different type of Islamic education, and they brought the different type of education, and they started practicing in different places the different types of this culture taken from the Arabs. Many people also went to Pakistan to also study about Islam, and later, because of some ideas were different, they started conflicting and having some kind of difficulties in having the common sense in explanation of some rulings or some hukam or the fatwas, giving fatwa. So they also having this difficulty, and also another difficulty, the government is very careful about what Muslims are reading. It's why the many books also, the Islamic books are banned in Russia, some tafsirs, the hadith, and it's why because these books are labeled, some are like the Hizb ut-Tahrir book, without any proper linkage to it, or the Wahhabi or Sayyid Nursi books. It's why they are having some difficulties inside of the country. But comparing to what did happen during the Russian Empire time or the Soviet Union time, today Russian Muslims are free to practice their religion, but because of the political situation, they are a part of the country. What is happening today also in the geopolitics, there are different opinions and the different views of Muslims, or the stance is why many Muslims started also migrating from Russia to other places, especially to Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, in Turkey also. So it is why even to give the exact number of the Muslims in Russia is quite difficult, and it is very difficult for me to speak anything about the prospects of Muslims, because these prospects 100% depend on Russian political stance, strategic, all this is the policies, because it's very much interlinked, because they are the citizens of Russia, and it is why this is very difficult to mention, to know, without analyzing Russian strategic, the policies, or we need the future studies, the experts for that one. So this is what I wanted to share with you. It is not easy to speak what did happen in the 1,100 years, starting from 922. It's very difficult to combine everything within the 1 hour took, and thank you very much. So I stop here. Let me stop sharing, and thank you very much. I stop here.
Thank you very much, Professor Elmira, for giving a very comprehensive talk on the events of history took place in the development of Islam in Russia. Sohail, can you unmute yourself, Brother Sohail, and ask a question if you want? We can't listen to you. Are you saying something, Sohail?
Can you hear me now? Am I audible?
Yeah, if you can try a bit loud voice.
Yeah. I have one question with Madam that thanks for detailed overview of Islam. I have one question right now.
Sohail, you are not audible. So
What about now? Am I audible now?
no, it's too low. So if possible, you can put your question in the chat box. Sadhana Nasir, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Today was so much nice lecture, and I have learned a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of questions, but I will just ask 1-2 questions. So my question is, why Muslims are increasing in Russia? My first question is this, and my second question is, when was Islam allowed in Russia?
Okay, let me answer immediately. Why Muslims are increasing in Russia? Everywhere people are increasing today. It's why we have the child control in many places. Everyone is complaining in big cities. Everyone is increasing because, this is natural. Natural growth. And don't consider that the many Russians are accepting Islam also, because it is not more than 100,000 Russians who accepted Islam, but at the same time, many Tatars also accept Christianity or get married to the Christians. As I mentioned to you, this number is only ethnic number. What are the millions we are talking about? But they are not practicing or identifying themselves as Muslims, because we are identifying if this person is Tatar, it's supposed to be a Muslim, because maybe he is or she is practicing Christianity. Actually, they are, I don't know from where the sister was believing that it's increasing. There are some the theories are increasing everywhere. It will be because we can see that the birth rate in the places like the Chechnya or among the Azeri people, who are also the migrants, also they came, they got the citizenship also. They are having more kids in their families than the Russians. This might be in future. They are expecting that the Muslims will be more. But again, another thing also, the many migrants, labor migrants are coming also from the Muslim majority countries, from Central Asia or from Azerbaijan. It's how their number is increasing. I don't think it too much increasing, but the number of people who are start practicing Islam among the so-called Muslim by name is increasing. People are more knowing about Islam, and also it is also in media, especially I am talking about the Tatarstan, for example, in TV, in the newspapers, is very openly, they are very much is the Islam oriented, is why many people are getting the more knowledge and start practicing Islam. Second question was when Muslims started having freedom. As I mentioned to you, it started from the time of the Catherine II, but we have to remember this is in Russian time, but until 1552, these places, all places were having also the independent Islamic states, where Islam was considered as or was practiced as an official religion. But then only when it was real, I mean, the total colonialism and annexation and the strategy was like this. And for 200 years, Muslims were not given permission. But mainly the Catherine II time, Muslims were first time considered as the rights to practice their religion, some rights. This is number one. And in 1905, at the first revolution time, they were considered as a full citizens along with the Russians and others Muslims. Political rights were given, first the religious rights, secondly political rights at the beginning of 20th century. And then Soviet Union time, it was the dictatorship and atheism. We don't talk about any rights of anyone at that time. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union, I mean, everyone got the rights to practice their religion, but there are some difficulties, some adjustments, which I didn't speak today because this is not the topic. So this is what I can tell. Thank you for the questions.
One more question, last question for this session. Tahira, can you unmute yourself, please, and ask the question?
Assalamu alaikum. Dear Sister Almira, my question is, what is the highlighted, or you can highlight the reason which has been like for the Muslims being oppressed and thrown away from the political social arena? What is the main reason? Is it that they didn't increase in knowledge, in political activism, or is it the language that they didn't develop? You see, whenever we come immigrate in a country, we have to learn the local country, the language. So what can be the reason?
Okay, so we are talking here about the modern times, right?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what I am seeing it because I am not living in Russia already for 25 years. So I finished university. I was teaching at the university. Then I moved to Malaysia, then to Turkey, then Germany. Now I am working, but always I studied because I am the professor the historian in Islam in Russia. So I always write about it. So according to my observation, and also this is mainly I don't see specific any discrimination related to Islam. These are all in line with the policies of the government. Number one, you pointed out very correctly, language. Because Russia was always preferring to have only one language to unite people, starting from the time of the Muscovite Principality, Russian. It's why I was mentioning always Russification, right, all the time. And it did happen also the Soviet Union time. So it is always, like white man's burden is very strong in your subcontinent. This is the outcome of colonialism. In Russia, everyone believes that the Russian civilization, Russian culture is superior when other minorities, their culture, their lifestyle is inferior. Or it's why everyone wants to be like Russians. This comes into the minds of kids starting from kindergarten, because speaking in native language, for example, on the streets or in kindergarten, in school, is considered something very backward. So this is some kind of culture now. So everyone wants to be like Russians. It's why this is not only related to the policies, but the mindset of people. But mindset of people is the outcome of a lot of policies for long centuries already. And also the Russian Federation, also, we were actually, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, all the republics were given the status of independent, not the independent, the federations, because this is called the not Russian Federation, right? if the federation is supposed to have federations. And in Tatarstan, for example, or in Bashkortostan, in Chechnya, all of them were having their own local president. The first day it was already in the last few years, it became like Rais or the hit only. So their status reduced now, and they became the fully controlled by the center, by the Moscow. So slowly this is the regional power in order to not the control guide and also the manage education, culture, all these, the possibilities are gone. So as a result, since the center is a Russian oriented, all these cultural policies, everything is coming from the Moscow. What is suitable for Russians, for Moscow? And this is really very dangerous for the future of these minorities in Russia, because as minorities, they are not provided any opportunities to keep their identity, to keep their language, to keep their religion, their culture. This is really a very difficult situation there. And most of these cases are related to the centralized government in Russia, because centralized government is good if you are having one small country and more mono-ethnic and the mono-religious country is easier. We are having these difficulties in many countries to the nation states, but Russia is huge and it's much bigger than the normal nation states. Also, it is called the federalism or the Russian Federation. These federation policies are not working there, and all are considered as all the policies are given by the center without understanding regional differences, regional needs, and regional context. I think it's why it might be also difficult for the Islam also here. So this is how I am seeing it.
Thank you very much, Professor, for giving answers in a detailed way. Now, and thank you very much for delivering a lecture in such a sophisticated way. Jazakallah khair. Now we will move forward to our next guest speaker, that is Professor Dr. Ijaz Shafi Gilani. If you can unmute yourself and can present.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When I looked at the program and found Dr. Almira Ahmed's name, I suggested to Ehsan Malik that rather than speaking on my own, I might give some observations and commentary on Dr. Almira's talk. I guess Ehsan would have communicated that to you. So let me proceed with what I found to be an excellent talk. Within 1 hour, Dr. Almira actually covered 1400 years of Islam, beginning from 650 up to date. She did it in an excellent way by both segmenting the geography into various parts of that huge region, as well as the historical periods into several periods. And within each period, different kinds of distinctions. I found this particularly useful because over the years, as a teacher in the Department of International Relations, I have found that there is enormous interest among Pakistani students and among the academics and the teaching community, but unfortunately, enormously deficient and in some cases misleading information. So there's a huge gap between interest, even emotional attachment on the one hand, and lack of information and incorrect information on the other. So this is why I would greatly appreciate this new institution's um, first activity by focusing on a place where this kind of gap exists. And I found that Dr. Almera would be an ideal person, in fact, to help Pakistan and Pakistani students and Pakistani faculty to overcome this gap. And in the manner that she has first started from the very basics in some way, is what we need, which is the geography of not only the Russian Federation, but the larger area of which it is in some ways the big component, but with all the kinds of distinctions that she made. I would not be, it was very appropriate that she distinguished between what is today as the Russian Federation and the Central Asian republics. And within the Russian Republic, Russian Federation, the Caucasus, the Azeri areas, the Volga and Ural region, and what goes beyond present Russia to Kiev, and the period in which the period prior to the Moscow led Russia in the 16th century. These are the kinds of distinctions without which Pakistan is and Pakistani universities are unfortunately spending a lot of effort with very little outcome. If I was to estimate, and this is both to Dr. Almera in particular, but also to the Rifa University and its the head of the institution, Dr. Anis Ahmed, that I would think that in any given semester, there would be at least 200 courses taught at the university level in Pakistan on what is generally called as the state of society in Central Asia. These over 200 courses at least is an expression of the interest and emotional attachment. But because of the lack of proper guidance and proper framework, very little actually gets even to the 10% of what Dr. Almera in fact explained in 1 hour. So I would be, before proceeding with a few other suggestions, my first suggestion would be for the institute that has organized this, work with the university, beginning with possibly the IFA University, organize a faculty training summer program. And just Dr. Almera's presentation that she presented today would be an ideal 2-month course or 6 weeks course to train the teachers who would be teaching. They went to Central Asia. They mean to teach both Central Asia and Russia. And that's what they teach, even though it's called Central Asia. But the subject matter intended is very much the presentation that Dr. Almera presented today. I hope we'll be in touch with her. I don't think she would have the time to teach to the end students, nor would that perhaps be the most productive way of proceeding with this. But a faculty seminar, a faculty training program for 6 weeks with teachers who in the next 2 semesters would be teaching Central Asia, and there at least be close to 200 such courses in the 100-odd universities of Pakistan. Let me now say a few things which might be of some policy implication as well.
Dr. Saab, sorry for interruption. May I request you please to raise your voice? We are not getting it properly. Sorry for interruption.
I see. Just a minute. Let me. Is this better now? In any way?
Yes, Doctor.
It's better. It's better now. I think the most useful for me part of Dr. Almara's presentation was the distinctions that she made between periods when there has been repression, periods where there's been openness, and so on, which also suggests that things can change. And that it is also different parts of the Russian society today. I would think that in the present age, there is also a post-national age in some ways. And Russia itself is both progressing and as well as regressing possibly. Regressing just simply in demographic trends of reduced population. The nature of its economy has transformed from a highly, a more complex economy to largely a commodity selling economy. Its role within Europe has changed, as has its role changed globally. So one could conceive that Russia might be at a time when there would be a change in the future in its policies. So to think about ways and means of working with Russia would be a strategic way of thinking about it, because working with Russia might also help this large component, which would be, as Dr. Almara suggested, the lowest figure would be 10%. The higher figure would be 15% of Russia's population. In particular, if you take into account the residents other than the citizens of the Federation, it might even go higher than 15% in some ways. It also has majority areas within Russia. So once there is greater knowledge about both the history and the present period, there could be ways of improving it, just as policies changed over the 1400 years, from 650 to 1550 and 1550 to 1750 to 1850 and 1850 to 900 to 1900. And another three phases which she explained. One could think that from the 2021-20 Ukraine crisis, there could still be another phase in the future. How it stands presently, when we conduct surveys or work on surveys conducted in Russia, many of the things which Dr. Almara was suggesting get verified and even has empirical numbers. Most recently, I've been working on a survey in which about atheism across the globe, atheism itself as a religion in many ways. And when we ask questions about basic Islamic tenets about God and about life after death, or about rewards and punishment, the Jannah and Dozakh, hell, we find that there is a substantial number of people we found initially all across among the Muslims of the world who were not believing in these tenets. But when we try to find out what parts of the world are these views concentrated, we find those views concentrated in countries which had been ruled for a long time by communist governments, in particular in Russia, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe. But among the Muslims in particular, in Russia and Central Asia, which confirms what Dr. Almara was saying, that a unified educational system in which atheism as presented as the state ideology or religion until very recently has left deep marks on the population, even those who declare themselves as Muslims. So the manner in which the Russian Muslims are to be seen can only be meaningful if we look into those with the kind of distinguishing eye demonstrated by Dr. May. Another point, and this is in particular to Dr. May, we found that in many parts of Europe, both Europe and the Americas, the survey that I've been analyzing asked a question about how would you like your children to be educated? Would you like them to be religious? Would you like them to be obedient to their parents? Would you like them to be altruistic or selfless? Would you like them to be disciplined? So on and so forth. While many of those characteristics were given uniform responses across religions, including the atheists, there were two issues on which there was big difference. One, which was the issue, would you like your child to be religious? And the second, would you like your children to be obedient to their parents? On these two issues, those who called themselves, and this is in Europe and America, those who called themselves Christians and those who called themselves Muslims and those who called themselves atheists, their self-declared or faith, we found that the similarity between Christian parents and Muslim parents was much greater than their identity with the atheists of their own age. This was true of North America as it was true of Eastern Europe, including Russia, and also of Western Europe and Latin America. Which makes us think, would there be some similarity between the practicing Christians of the European populations, including Russia, and the practicing Muslims, practicing at least in their aspirations and beliefs, especially when they contrast this with the atheists of their own ethnicity or atheists of their own nationality. One point of view, which I found to be more palatable to me, that Muslims and Christians on some of these basic tenets are much closer to each other than the atheists living in their backyards or as their neighbors. Within the Euro-American community, Russia in particular, Eastern Europe in general, seems to be more religious in a broader sense, at least away from atheism and away from many of the social issues which Europe and North America, on which, despite calling themselves not renouncing the religion, but they have left those traditions. So this is the particular point that I'd like to leave with Dr. Elmer. Is there any possibility between the believing Christians of Russia and the believing and practicing, at least in their aspirations, Muslims, to work with each other against the very dominant atheist practices of the ruling regimes and ruling authorities, and even ruling classes of the Euro-American populations? Thank you very much. I again repeat my suggestion in the beginning that if the organizers of this could make some arrangement with Dr. Almera to have a summer course for the teachers of Central Asia and Russia in Pakistani University program teaching international relations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for giving the thoughtful view on service. And now, if we can take one or two questions, if someone have some questions, especially to Professor Ijaz Gilani, they can unmute themselves and ask question. Okay, then. Now we will move forward to the final remarks by Dr. Atikus Zafar. If you can unmute and conclude the session.
Thank you very much, Brother Mujib Bhatti. I am also grateful to Center for Peace and Global Studies for arranging this important seminar. Russia is a country which is relatively less known to the people in Pakistan and many other countries because of their system they were following previously. And second is that Pakistan is also in a phase of changing relations from enmity to a friendship. So this is the reason people want to know more about this great country, Russia, which was used to be superpower in some era, and again trying to achieve the similar position as they were having in the past. I'm also grateful to all the scholars who shared their very precious thoughts with the audience. Dr. Muhammad Ali Dinafel, who provided the glimpses of historical heritage in Sandsburg city of Russia, and Dr. Almira, who very beautifully presented the history of presence of Muslims and Islam in different parts of the Russia as well as in different time periods. And as Dr. Glani suggested, that most beautiful and important part was that she identified different time periods, that what was the situation of Muslims and what was the treatment of Islam towards the Muslims. So that provided a lot of insights to all of us. I'm also grateful to our mentor and great scholar, Professor Dr. Ijaz Shafi Gilani, for providing very thoughtful information and extending many useful suggestions, including the last one that Dr. Almira should hold some course for the scholars on this subject. I am also very much grateful to the audience who attended this seminar throughout the time, and I hope that they must have find it useful, and they will remain connected with this Center of Peace and Global Studies during their future seminars and other programs. We missed the presence of Dr. Anis Ahmad due to some urgent engagements, and he just said that he could not attend the program at the last moment because of some urgent engagements he got. So we hope that we will find his presence in the next programs and benefit from his thoughts and guidance. So again, I would like to thank the organizers of the seminar, Brother Ehsan Malik and Brother Mujib Bhatti, for arranging such a good opportunity for all of us to learn from the scholars from different corners of the world. Once again, I thank all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atif Zafar Saab, Dr. Ejaz Gailani Saab, Professor Almira, Dr. Muhammad Ali Din Akhil, and all the participants. Although it is working day to day, and they join us and make this lecture successful. So I am thankful to all of you, and Brother Mujib, who conducted the program very well. I am thankful to all of you, and inshallah we will meet again in our next program. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.